Thank you, Veronica. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Woo. Let's put that back just a little bit. Well, it's a great day, isn't it? I mean, first off, it's the first Sunday of summer. Yay. We have a wonderful celebration. We have two of our mediums today receiving their certifications, so we're going to have a little celebration. Full moon was just a few days ago, and along with our summer solstice. So I just kind of want to welcome you all, and our call to worship is about that Midsummer Night Eve, right? It's about the history of the fairy people who really don't want to be called fairies, I just found out. They like to be called the fair folk or the she, S-H-E-E, the she. And there are actually stories, true pictures. I think it's like 1840s, two little girls in England actually were capturing photos of the fairies in the woods. And then it got out, and the fair folk said to them, please don't put this out there or we're gonna keep, and they did. And then it was like a stampede of, well, where's the fairy folk? So anyway, the fairy folk went back underground. They still are with us for sure. But it's also about, right, the sun is at its apex. The spring maiden her roots, her seeds have been planted, and now it's summer and everything's going to grow. And so I hope all those promises that you made to yourself in the spring, that they start to flourish, they start to grow within you. And then the one other thing about the summer solstice is that it's when the Lakota Nation did their sun dance, right? It was when all the tribes of the Lakota Nation would do the sun dance, right? And so it was them worshiping, the sun god who was bringing them all the things they needed. Yes, Wayne?
It's the start of a new year for them.
A start of a new year. Thank you. I did not realize that part. So it's in the Lakota culture of the Sundance and our midsummer's dreams. I welcome you all to summer, and boy, is it hot. So thank you. We will start with our first hymn, will be hymn 28, verses 1, 2, and 3. So please stand. I've got Peace Like a River, and remain standing for the invocation. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. Mother Earth, Father Sky, God, Ascended Masters, fair folk, all who are with us today, we thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for allowing us to celebrate our love and peace here on earth with each other. As we raise the veil today to celebrate those who have come before you, we ask that you bring our harmony into our heart and let the sun God shine down, reaching each one of us and allowing us to know the kindness that is in all our lives, especially our Holy Mother Earth. Amen.
Amen.
So our own Annamarie Melodia will be our sermon bearer today. Yay! I told her when she says, I'm a little bit nervous, say a prayer, and I go, oh, just talk about the date, you're right, So to welcome Annamarie up here for her wonderful sermon that I know will knock us out of our boots, please stand and sing hymn 23, 1, 2, and 3, Brighten the Corner, to welcome Annamarie to the podium.
Thank you, Christine, for putting that song there. I needed that song. For those of you that don't know, that's my work song, and so I do feel my guides with me, and Sylvia's here because I am really nervous today for a lot of reasons, Anne and Jim, but I'm also really, as I try to give these messages, I really start to think about what what do I have to offer? What can I bring today that would make sense and resonate with you? So anyway, good morning. That wasn't too bad. That was pretty good. We have lots of energy left over from yesterday. So all of you who worked the Psychic Fair, thank you for that and bringing forward that energy today. So as always, it is such a blessing to be with you. But before I get started, I have a favor to ask of you. Do you mind? I don't ask many favors. So before I get started, can I get everyone to just stand up for a second? Oh, wow. Thank you. Okay, can you please sit down? Wait a minute. Would you mind if you stand up one more time for me? I'm not going to do it, oh, but you did it. So thank you. Anyway, please go ahead and have a seat. Actually,
For real?
I think I've got everyone's attention. And in fact, I was just kind of testing you to see how much power I really do have up here. And yes! And I will tell you, you guys listened a whole lot better than a lot of my students used to, so thank you for that. But the question I want to ponder today, and that I've been doing a lot of thinking about this question, is why did you stand up? Why do you stand up? When do you stand up? And I think particularly as we come off of Juneteenth, which is finally a national holiday, and yet I look around this country and the world and I see all of this chaos continuing on. I start to wonder, why do we stand up? When do we stand up? And how do we stand up? And what does that mean to us as spiritualists? So I thought the only way I can really bring these messages forward is I can relate it to a personal experience. And I'm sorry about that. I am not a biblical scholar. But I thought I would share a time when I asked that question to someone who left an indelible mark on both my professional and personal life. And honestly, it made such a mark that I still feel it 35 plus years later. When I had the opportunity to meet a civil rights icon that you may not even know. Her name was Septima Poinsett Clark. Ring a bell? She was an African-American educator and civil rights activist born in 1898. In addition to her work with the NAACP, she was one of the teachers who developed the literacy and citizenship workshops for Highlander Folk School that played an important role in the voting rights for African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, Dr. King commonly referred to Miss Septima as the mother of the movement. And that was very rare because a lot of the African American leaders at that time weren't that happy about having the women come in. And it wasn't a reflection on them, it was a reflection of the time, right? But Dr. King had an immense amount of respect for Miss Septima and took counsel from her. And so in addition to advising Dr. King, she trained countless grassroots leaders, including a name that will be familiar to you, Rosa Parks, just months before she launched the Montgomery bus boycott. Miss Septima's philosophy throughout her life's work was a simple one. She said that knowledge could empower marginalized groups in ways that formal legal equality couldn't. Knowledge could empower marginalized groups. So I was fortunate to be at Tougaloo College at the time, and for those of you who don't know Tougaloo College, it's a historically black college that during the civil rights movement was a safe haven for all of the leaders, for all of those, regardless of race, color, creed, to come together and plan and strategize, but most importantly, be safe. It had a huge wrought iron fence, probably 10 feet wrapped around it, with gates that we would lock at night. There's actually houses on campus that I was fortunate enough to stay in. So we were invited to meet Miss Septima, to have dinner and a conversation. And this is about a year or so before she died in 1987, so she was probably 87, 88 at that time. And the group of us, there's about 10 of us, we were all had experience in working some way or the other with the civil rights movement or in terms of promoting equality and equity for marginalized groups. And to be honest, we were all a bit cocky. You know, it's like, we've done that. You know, so we've been there, we've got this. And we can't wait to tell Miss Septima what we've done. That was ego, pure ego. And so Miss Septima comes in, and she's pretty frail at this time, and she's about half my size, and in the chair, she comes in, and I will tell you, you could feel the energy shift. And I don't know if it was an aura or energy or power, but you could feel her fill up that room with her little tiny frail body. And all of a sudden, all 10 of us got really quiet and very humbled, because we knew that we were in the presence of someone truly great, someone who changed history, someone who made significant sacrifices. And after dinner, we kind of all gathered around, and she was there, and almost like in a throne, like holding court. And each and every one of us, what was interesting is that we all sat around in a circle on the floor at her feet, which seemed really appropriate. And I said, we had so many questions to ask. I mean, but where do you start? Where do you start? Again, there was so much history sitting in front of us, and we struggled with where to begin. So we asked probably one of the hardest ones, probably one of the most silly ones in a lot of ways. But we asked, how did you have the strength to stand up in the midst of so much struggle, adversity, and hatred? How could you stand up? Where did you find the strength, the fortitude to do that? How did you have the courage to continue when your life was being threatened every day? And what she said was so simple. And I remember it to this day. She said, when you believe in something so much, when you believe in something so much, you find strength in the struggle to stand up for what is right. I haven't forgotten that. 35 years later, I can't even remember my name, but I remember that. So strength in the struggle to stand up. In our journey as spiritualists, we often face challenges and adversities and questions and opportunities to take a stand, right? To help educate, to help teach, to be a role model. And through these struggles, through these opportunities, our faith of who we are, our core principles, are tested and strengthened at the same time. And honestly, you know, we all know it is so much easier to sit on the sidelines, to be silent, to sit there and whine and moan and maybe flail our arms around and talk about amongst ourselves about all the injustices that are happening, and drown in our often very real fears, and end up with paralysis of our analysis. So we continue to ask, and so we don't understand. How did you do it? And she said, what you do is that you find strength in the struggle by living out 3 ideals. 3 ideals. I thought, oh, that sounds pretty simple. Oh, yeah, you're right. Thank you for chuckling. We didn't know it at the time. The first one, she said, stand firm in our beliefs. The second one was show solidarity with the oppressed. And the third was serve others through sacrifice. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, she took us to school. She took this little 88-year-old lady sitting in that chair. She took all of us who were educators, attorneys. We had a Supreme Court justice with us. We were all smart. We were all educated. She took us to school in a way that we needed. So when she talked about when you need to stand firm in your beliefs, she said it's grounded across all of the sacred texts. So the Bible talks about standing firm in your beliefs. Corinthians urges us to be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. The Quran also talks about standing firm. O ye who have believed, stand out firmly for injustice, even as against yourselves, your parents, or kin. Man, it sounds so easy, but it's not. In fact, it's difficult at times to stand firm in our beliefs because sometimes we're afraid of being ridiculed or challenged or questioned or hurt, particularly in a world that is constantly challenging our values and beliefs. No, she said, doesn't matter. She said, what you need to do, regardless, you need to remain steadfast. Find your footing in a constantly shifting landscape, because it always is. It's never going to be the same. Today is not going to be the same as tomorrow, and it goes on. Nor was it the same as yesterday. And she said, this means that you need to be vigilant and grounded in your faith, whatever your faith is, because one of the things she said, God has no religion. God has people of faith. And she said, when you look across all of us who worked in the movement, it didn't matter what your color was, what your race was, what your gender was. She said, your belief is the bedrock of your identity as spiritualists and as individuals. And standing firm means not compromising on the principles, those declaration of principles that define us. And she said also to stand firm, you need to be courageous. You need to be courageous in the face of adversity. That's what we did. He said, we sucked it up through our toes, pulled it out of nowhere to find the courage that we needed. Because she said, courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to move forward despite it. Oh, I'm not that courageous. So she said, whether or not we face personal trials or societal challenges, we're often called to be courageous. I know there are times all of us have been called to be courageous. I look at some of the actions that happened during the Civil Rights Movement, and I think about 6-year-old Sonny Herford IV, who helped desegregate Alabama schools, as he and his dad walked hand in hand through that door. Talk about David facing Goliath, Daniel in the lion's den. I am not that brave. I think of the people, the young people that marched into Woolworths and sat down at the counter. David and Goliath, Daniel in the lion's den. That's courage. And she said another part of it is standing in your belief. You need to be able to believe in it enough to uphold justice and righteousness. You need to stand firm. Standing firm also involves a commitment. Can you commit to it? But as spiritualists, we do that. We know we are called to be the light in a world that can often be overshadowed in darkness. So she challenged us right there. She said, you need to actively seek out justice, not just for yourselves, but for everyone, and live as examples of the world you want it to be. So then she said, well, let's talk about number 2, solidarity with the oppressed. Now it's starting to get a little heavy. And maybe we need to get out our little notepads here and start writing this down, because we were listening to history. She talked about solidarity with the oppressed as advocating for those who cannot speak for themselves. And it's interesting. So I had the opportunity to sit with the Dalai Lama at one point. That's a whole other story. But he often talks about standing on the shoulders of Dr. King and Gandhi for his work, 2 fearless leaders who never met, by the way, on 2 different continents, but tirelessly reached out to those on the margins of society, relentlessly, until change started to happen. Then she challenges again and said, do you dare, can you stand on those shoulders? Shouldn't you stand on those shoulders? I think so, but maybe not as much, maybe with just tiny baby steps, right? Because that's a lot of shoulders to stand on. But what we can do with those who are marginalized and oppressed, we can listen to their stories. We can see them and not walk by them. We can understand and have empathy for their struggles and use our voice to amplify theirs. She said, yeah, and you can also show solidarity by speaking out. Use that voice. Speak out against discrimination and inequality. They are antithetical concepts to all of the sacred texts of the world. They don't exist. They are man-made creations. So yes, we are called out to speak against injustice. We are called out to use our voice for the voiceless, just as the prophets of old spoke against the wrongs of their time. Choose your pick. It could be racial injustice, gender inequality, economic disparity, whatever grabs your heart. Our faith and belief compels us to strive for a more equitable world. And then she started to get a little cocky with it. She said, you know, the other thing that you could do to show solidarity is support those fighting for civil rights and equality. And we're thinking, well, we thought we were doing that. She said, it's not enough. She said, remember, don't forget those that are fighting on the front line that may or may not have a name that you know. Show an act of solidarity, not just as an act, but as an act of faith. God has no religion, she said again. And we must always take the opportunity to stand with those who are fighting for their God-given rights, offering our support, prayers, and resources. Okay, I don't know about you, but I was starting to get a little overwhelmed, a little frightened. I could never do any of this. But then she wasn't done. She said, you know, the final point I want to leave you with is service through sacrifice. That was her final challenge to us, to live a life of service and sacrifice, essentially to get in the game, stay in the game, and fight a good fight. She said what that means is that you need to take time to serve others selflessly, which means without ego, right? She said take some time, take an opportunity to put their needs, other people's needs, above your own, whether it's through a simple act of kindness, charitable giving, or simply being there in a time of need. Because as Rosa Parks said, this is one of my favorite quotes, where she said, memories of our lives, of our works and our deeds will continue in others. So what we do matters. And she says, and I hate to tell you this, boys and girls, children, because she did call us children, she said, the other thing that you need to remember is sometimes you need to sacrifice personal comfort for the greater good. Oh, now, ouch. I don't know about you. I don't even do glamping, okay? Because no. So that personal comfort for the greater good. But she said true service often requires sacrifice of some sort. It may mean giving up our time, resources, or even our comfort to help others, to take a stand when we are most afraid. You know, I look at leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, who almost died by fasting to bring his country together, to bring Hindus and Muslims together. And I can't imagine when he was laying on that mat near death's door that he wondered if he was doing this in vain. But you know what? The country came together. We think of so many others, the multiple times that Dr. King was imprisoned. We remember Nelson Mandela, Myanmar's President Suu Kyi. The list is endless and endless and endless. Emmett Till, and all of the other unsung martyrs that gave their lives for what they believed in, the ultimate sacrifice of personal comfort, so that so many others, myself included, may have a better life and world to raise our children in. She said, but I'm going to leave you with a simple one. She said, remember throughout it all, she said, remember to embody the principles of love and compassion. Because that's really at the heart of service. It's about having compassion, empathy, the principles of love and compassion. When we serve others, we embody that God breath, that God spark within us, that never-ending love that we receive from the Creator. Compassion compels us to act, to heal, to comfort, and to bring hope to sometimes the hopeless. The Dalai Lama has been expelled from his country of Tibet because of what he represented. Yet he travels the world and lives amidst death threats, spreading the word about the power of compassion and its transformative power. So here we were, a bunch of educators, a bunch of leaders, we thought, and we were all furiously trying to write down all of these wise words of wisdom from Miss Seppi. And you could almost see like the disappointment kind of cross her face, because I think she realized I didn't get through to these children. She was probably right, because we asked probably the next dumbest question we could have. She said, that's great, we get it, we got the 3 points, but how do you do it? We can never be like Dr. King or Ms. Parks or you. And where are our leaders? Who are we following? They were amazing. It was a different time. Oh my gosh. You know how the elders give you that look? She gave us that look. That, you know, it's like, And she just shook her head and took this deep breath. And she looked at us, said, for a bunch of educated folks, you're not that smart. She was right. So what she did said, let me talk to you like my children. And so she did. She started to talk to us like 3-year-olds and offered these simple challenges. She said, what you need to do, first and foremost, to deal with the how, the why, and the what, to stand up, she said, find something that is so important to you, so meaningful. It makes you stay awake at night. It eats at your heart. It eats at your soul, causes you pain and upset and indigestion, and grab a hold of it. Grab a hold of it. Whatever it is, whatever your cause, whatever you're passionate about, poverty, hunger, animals, the earth, human rights, stand up. Stand up. And she said, it's really that simple. And what you may be surprised is what happens next when you find out what is pulling at your heart. She said, there are simple ways. You can do it. You don't need to be Dr. King. You don't need to be Miss Parks. And she said, you definitely don't need to be me. I said, there's only one, Miss Seppi. She said, you can stand up by standing in front of someone. When someone is being threatened, when someone is being maligned, when someone is being abused, we can stand in front and say, stop. Use our voice. We are smart people. We are people of faith. We are people of God and Creator. When you see injustice, can you have the courage to work through your fear, to stand in front of someone that is being hurt or maligned or challenged? She said, there are other ways to stand up. You can stand alongside someone. She said, how many times, I know many of us have, linked arms in solidarity and unity over a cause that is important to us. Often crossing race, religion, gender. Whether it was gay pride, civil rights, women's rights, whatever it is, we knew the power of linking arms, walking side by side. It was a sign of unity, it was a sign of solidarity, and people saw it. And they saw that we cared, and it could galvanize a movement. It galvanized momentum moving forward. She said, but you don't need all those people. Think about the power of grabbing onto someone's hand who may be afraid of walking through our door, and walk alongside of them like that little boy, that 6-year-old boy who all he had was his father's hand to walk him into the lion's den. Sometimes that's enough. And she said, but I'm not done yet. She said, you can also stand up by standing behind people. She said, all of you are parents. Well, I wasn't, I was a pet parrot. But she said, so many of you are parents. You understand what this means, right? You give your children all of the tools in your toolbox. And then when it comes time, you stand behind them, whisper in their ear, coach them, and then kind of gently nudge them out of the nest, hopefully, right? But you know in your heart of hearts that as standing behind them, you will also give them a safe place to fall if they need it. So what are our opportunities to be a parent, a coach, a teacher for a cause that has meaning to you? It doesn't take much. And then she said, finally, sometimes to stand up, you just need to sit down. She's talked about Dr. King galvanizing a movement, sitting down in Birmingham jail and writing his letter, where he wrote, one day the South will know that when these disinherited children of God sat down at lunch counters, they were in reality standing up for what is best in the American dream. Rosa Parks sat down on that bus not because she was tired, but because she was tired. She was tired. So this is the one thing I can do, civil disobedience, is sit where I'm not allowed to sit. Same with the Woolworths counters. And those simple acts of courage started movements. Well, these are big things. And I think at that time, all 10 of us sitting around in this room were feeling really small. But then again, I can write letters. I've wrote op-ed pieces. I've signed petitions. These are things that all of us can do when we find that thing that grabs and pulls at our heart. And then Miss Seppi said, "Children, I'm tired." She said, "I've given you all you need and all that I can give you." And I think, looking back now, I think one of the things she wanted us to understand most of all is that to stand up, you don't need to be part of a movement. You need to be movement. And then something magical happened. She reached down, as we were all sitting in this circle around her, she reached out and grabbed my colleagues' hands that were sitting beside her, and all of a sudden we formed a daisy chain. Linking hands. That sign of solidarity, unity, but in a lot of ways prayer. And then all of a sudden, out of this little tiny body came this powerful voice, and she started to sing. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. And we joined in. And we started to cry. Thank you, Lori. And I said it was one of those defining moments for our life. Because we realized we were part of something bigger. We were part of something special. We were a movement. And my life was forever changed. Thank you, Miss Seppi. So here we are again. I always get to this point. It's like, what did I say? What did I do? Hopefully some of this made sense, but I don't think I've got a whole lot more to share, except to remind you that at the beginning of this lesson, I asked all of you to stand, not just once, but twice. Some of you got a little grumpy at the second time, and that was okay. But you did it. Why? Well, I hope it was because you trusted me. You felt safe in this sacred place, and that maybe I would have something of value to share with you today. Maybe. I hope so. And I said, but more so what I would hope out of anything, that you can start to imagine what you can do through the simple act of standing up for something you believe in. Because at the end of the day, you may be surprised who stands up with you. Standing firm in our beliefs, showing solidarity with the oppressed, serving through sacrifice. Remember, our strength comes from something greater as spiritualists. If nothing else, my family, sorry. I hope that you leave here today with renewed strength and a deeper commitment to standing up wherever you are, however you do it, and live out our principles and gain strength through the struggle of it all. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Everybody get out your phone, find your favorite issue, and stand up and be counted and be part. And yet our strength comes from all of us right here today, doesn't it? I know if I've got an issue, I could go to any one of you, the new, the old, all of you. I know you would hold me and give me the strength I need to face whatever is oppressing me. My favorite saying when I was in the 60s was, make love, not war. So I leave you with that, make love, not war. So we're going to switch gears now. Instead of a second spirit greeter, we're now going to have our ceremony for our two mediums. So we will leave the stage now, okay. Shirley and I, and Ann and Jim are in charge.
Just a little bit of a housekeeping thing first. Afterwards, we do have a celebration in the social room. Cake is set up, but there's stuff in the oven that we still have to get out. So be patient with us afterwards and having all the food out there. And everyone, whether you brought anything or not, you're welcome to stay. Okay. Preparation is very, very important, not just for the food. But our candidates today for the Certificate of Mediumship for Progressive Spiritualist Church have done an extraordinary amount of preparation for this day. Their studies were interrupted quite a bit, but they kept studying. And they've studied more years than any other group here. And they got more training outside of here to prepare themselves. The board has declared that they are ready to be certified mediums for our church. So I'm calling them up now to stand right behind us here. Annamarie Melodia, Venetia Spencer, part of the requirements are going through at least 2 years of mediumship training. If any of you have any interest in following in these great steps, there are flyers out there on the table that tell you what these requirements are that they've already achieved. So, am I doing the song now? Okay. And how about Imagine? Okay.
In your bulletin, we have an insert for the song.
Very good. Imagine there's no end. It's easy if you try. Our thoughts say you will join us, and the world will be as one. Annamarie Melodia and Venetia Spencer, congratulations. You have demonstrated your gift of mediumship to the congregation and to the governing board of the church. In receiving this mediumship certificate, you take upon yourselves the duties and responsibilities of a medium certified by Progressive Spiritualist Church. Regard your mediumship as your spiritual work. Your spiritual work should never become a burden to you. Instead, use it to grow closer to your own inner light. You are encouraged to share that inner light with others so that the energy within you might flow out to heal the world. The most important question to ask when doing this spiritual work is, how can I be of service? If you keep that question foremost in every situation, you will find your work to be a blessing to both those you serve and yourself.
Before this certificate is presented, there are certain questions to which your answers are required. Consider your answers as a solemn pact between you and the Creator. Will you refrain from any practice, act, or demonstration contrary to the teachings of spiritualism? If so, reply, I will.
I will.
Will you resolve to bring an attitude of hope and encouragement to all those who avail themselves of your services? If so, reply, I will.
I will. I will.
Will you at all times hold yourself to the highest standards of the sacred gift of mediumship? If so, reply, I will.
I will. I will.
The granting of this certificate does not mean that you have reached the ultimate in mediumship or knowledge. You are expressly required to continue to study and continue to develop your mediumship so that you may assist the ascended masters in unfolding the divine plan. So in a moment, I'm going to ask them to sit on the chairs here and ask the congregation to gather around them, and we'll sing the Alleluia. So as you go to those seats, I say congratulations, and may the blessings and protection of God and the spirit world surround you.